Hi, this is Winter. Welcome back to my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the story. All right, let's continue. Enjoy.
The banquet in the grand garden glowed with lantern light and soft music as nobles bowed deeply when the Duke and Duchess arrived, Dana and Allan walking gracefully at their side. Greetings filled the air, one voice after another calling out their honorifics. Among the crowd, Ria's eyes softened when she saw Dana holding herself together, not shedding a single tear. But before she could linger on that thought, Leticia's gaze fixed on her. The girl called out sharply, reminding Ria that their earlier conversation was not finished. She demanded Ria's attention, accusing her of rudeness for looking elsewhere. Ria, startled, protested weakly, for the Duke and Duchess had only just made their entrance. But Leticia pressed on, insisting that since she had been the first to request a conversation, Ria should answer her before anyone else. Ria hesitated, fumbling for words, only for Dana to rush into her arms, throwing herself against her in unrestrained joy. "Sister, I missed you." Clinging tightly, Ria tried to calm her, whispering that others were watching, but Dana only confessed she had been staring at her from across the garden the whole time. Leticia, her eyes narrowing, addressed Dana with cold formality, questioning why she would care so much for someone as insignificant as Ria. Dana bristled, her little hand pointing straight at Leticia. Her voice, sharp with anger, rang out. "Why are you bothering my sister, you fool?" Gasps and murmurs rippled through the nobles nearby. A commotion had begun to stir. Ria's heart raced. She knew this was bad. Quickly, she insisted to Dana that she was fine. Nothing had happened at all. Dana pouted, insisting Leticia had glared at her sister meanly. Ria coaxed her gently, urging her to believe she must have seen wrong, and guided her away from the crowd. Leticia stood frozen, her face burning in shock, and in her thoughts, her anger twisted darkly. That insolent child. I won't let this slide. Away from the crowd, Dinah puffed up her chest and declared her role proudly. She wanted to protect her sister, and she hated people who were mean to her. She would scold them because she was her sister's knight. Ria laughed softly, eyes warm. She told Dana she had already protected her, recalling how Dana had stood before her earlier, blocking the way with courage, and that moment had looked so brave, so cool. Dana's eyes widened in awe. Really? Was Dana that cool? Ria nodded firmly but urged her not to stay angry. Instead, she offered a gentler reward. Dana must be hungry after all that effort. She would fetch some food, so Dana should sit and wait. Dana beamed, agreeing eagerly. As Dana settled down, Ria's thoughts lingered tenderly on her, small and lovable. Could there be another warrior as amazing as her? "You even skipped a meal to come to me. I'll bring you something delicious right away." At the banquet table, Ria's eyes widened at the dazzling spread. So many delicacies, cakes, fruit, and at the center, a fountain of chocolate, flowing like a dream. A chocolate paradise, she thought, almost dizzy. Noble parties were far too extravagant. She didn't even know what to pick first. But then, whispers floated at her back. "Is that the child the young lady brought? She's not even pretty. And those clothes, just copying the young lady's style. Why would she bring someone like her?" Ria gripped her plate tighter, whispering to herself in her mind. "Ignore them. It's only natural they talk about me. I don't belong here. What matters is—" Her breath caught. Allan. He had stepped into the garden, not with the Duchess as expected, but alone, scanning the crowd. Why is he here? If we meet, there will be no apology, only more trouble. I must hurry back to Dana. But before she could move, a hard shove sent her sprawling forward. The plate slipped from her hands and crashed to the grass. Her knees scraped the ground, her dress, the one gifted by the madam, stained and ruined. Ah, the dress. It's dirty. Gasps swept the garden. The Duchess, alarmed, rushed forward. What is all this commotion? Her eyes fell on Rhea. Rhea! What happened? Are you hurt? Rhea shook her head quickly. Thank you for your concern, Duchess. I'm fine. But the Duchess pressed again, troubled. Are you really okay, Rhea? Inside, Rhea's thoughts tangled. Someone pushed me. It must have been a noble's child. But if I make a fuss, it will only escalate. I cannot cause trouble for the Duke's family over this. I should let it go. Yet whispers began to hiss through the crowd. As expected of a lowborn, manners show no matter the clothes. To cause such a scene at a banquet, how shameful! And then, Allan's voice rang out clear and sharp. He strode into the circle, raising his hand to point. That person pushed Rhea. His finger leveled directly at Leticia. The garden fell into silence. Leticia's eyes widened. Young master, what are you talking about? I would never push a mere maid. I swear I didn't do such a thing. Allan's jaw tightened. What? You dare deny it when I saw it with my own eyes? Everyone saw her push Rhea, didn't you? His voice roared across the garden. But before the crowd could answer, the Duke himself stepped forward, his presence silencing all. Why is no one asking the person involved? There is no point in third parties arguing. Rhea, were you pushed by someone, or did you fall on your own? All eyes turned to her. Rhea swallowed, then spoke firmly. I didn't fall on my own. Someone definitely pushed me. Allan's voice shot back instantly, his hand still pointing. See? I told you. That child pushed her. Leticia's voice cracked. I really didn't. I didn't even go near her. The Duke's voice cut through the air. Rhea, did you see the face of the one who pushed you? Rhea lowered her eyes. No, I did not. A sly smile curved across Leticia's lips. Perfect. She didn't see, and no one else will side with a maid. If I play pitiful, this will... Her thought froze as Rhea lifted her head. However, I have proof. When I was falling, I instinctively grabbed the one who pushed me. This is the torn piece of fabric I caught. She held up lace in her hand. Gasps exploded around them. That's... One noble cried. That's lace from Lady Leticia's dress. Leticia's face drained of color. Allan's voice pressed the knife deeper. You said you didn't even go near her. Then how did Rhea end up tearing your dress? Leticia stammered, words tripping. That's... Her father rushed forward, his face pale. Leticia, what on earth is going on? You've caused a commotion and embarrassed the Duke. The Duke's voice cut cold. Baron Jude, since your daughter disturbed the banquet, you must take responsibility. Your Excellency, that's not... The Baron tried, but the matter was already sealed. Allan bent, extending his hand to Rhea. Rhea, stand. His eyes burned as he turned to Leticia. She belongs to Dana. She is not someone you can trample as you please. Leticia broke. I'm sorry, she cried, and fled into the garden, ignoring her parents' desperate calls. Allan's voice chased after her. Don't forget to compensate for the dress. It was a matching one with Dana. The Duchess turned back to Rhea, her voice soft with worry. Rhea, are you okay? Rhea, trembling, bowed her head. I'm sorry, madam. I spoiled the dress. I'm so sorry. Tears streamed as she spoke. The Duchess knelt, wiping her cheeks. Rhea, it's okay. There is nothing for you to apologize for. It isn't your fault. We can always buy another dress. Before more could be said, Dana burst through the crowd, throwing herself at Rhea and hugging her tightly. Sister, are you okay? Bad. They bullied their sister. Let's go buy a new dress. It's all dirty. The Duchess laughed warmly at the child's earnestness. Yes, yes, we'll buy another one. Rhea stroked Dana's hair, her tears turning to a gentle smile. All right. Thank you for worrying about me, Dana. And in her heart, her vow was set. That's right. I won't live as a pushover in this life. From now on, I won't cower or endure unfairness in silence. Not for myself, but for these people who care about me. The night after the banquet, when the noise and tension had finally passed, Rhea sat alone in her room. She let out a long breath, murmuring that at last she felt like she could breathe again. In her mind, she replayed the evening, the commotion, the accusations, the torn lace that exposed the truth. It could have ended differently if Allan and the Duke had not stood by her. Even with solid proof, the words of a maid would have been dismissed. Power and wealth held the weight of truth in noble society. Quietly, she resolved that once they reached the capital, she would begin earning on her own, properly this time. Her thoughts were interrupted when the door creaked open. She startled, only to see Allan standing in the doorway. She asked why he was there, but the boy only gave a short command, to follow him. Without explanation, Allan led her to another room where a table had been laid out with food. Rhea froze, surprised at the sight. Allan ordered her to eat. She blinked, uncertain of his intention, but her stomach reminded her she hadn't eaten since morning. She thanked him and began her meal. The sweetness of the cake melted on her tongue, delighting her. It was then that Allan spoke again, softly but firmly. I'm sorry. Rhea lifted her head in shock, uncertain she had heard correctly. But Allan continued. He apologized for his anger before, for his harsh words. He admitted he had heard everything from his mother, how Rhea had protected Dana, how she had acted with no thought of gain. He confessed that his own grief and fears had twisted into resentment, and he had unfairly lashed out at her. It was all my fault, he admitted. Rhea told him she was grateful instead for his defense of her at the banquet. Allan's voice grew sharper then. That was only natural. You were wronged. I could never stand by and ignore injustice. Rhea smiled, calling him cool and asking him not to frown. She told him it was a waste for someone so handsome to scowl. That caught Allan off guard. He sputtered, asking how she could say such a thing without embarrassment. But when she calmly replied that it was simply the truth, he faltered, before puffing up and agreeing, Well, yes, I am handsome. Rhea nodded. Yes, you are handsome. He smirked and shot back. And you're ugly. I only gave you a compliment. Despite his words, Rhea thought to herself that it was a surprisingly good way to end such a hectic day. Time passed. The year turned, and Rhea reached 9 years of age while Allan and Jack turned 11. The preparations for the journey to the capital advanced smoothly. Rhea spent peaceful days welcoming the new year alongside Dana. But soon, a new test appeared. In the Duke's study, Baron Bardo, physician to the Duke himself, examined her with curious eyes. He asked if she was the child who had discovered Splasia. Rhea froze. What kind of situation was this? Baron Bardo introduced herself with dignity. She was the famed physician of House Bardo, a woman whose skill had surpassed even her siblings. Rhea thought, stunned, that she had not expected such a figure to appear without warning. The Baron questioned her. How had she known it was Splesia? Rhea explained calmly. The stem, the fine, bristle-like hairs, the veins on the leaves shaped like a spider's web. Those details distinguished it from a common weed. Baron Bardo's eyes glowed. She murmured that, indeed, this was the defining trait. Other physicians gasped. They had never thought they would see such a rare herb. One suggested that research with mages should begin immediately. Relieved, Rhea thought to herself that at least they recognized its value. The questioning continued. Had she seen any other rare herbs? Would she consider studying medicine or pharmacology? Rhea felt the weight of familiarity, a path she had walked before, but the Duke ended it with a sharp command. Enough. The research would begin now. The physicians bowed and withdrew. When silence returned, the Duke regarded Rhea steadily. As I thought, you must be a bringer of fortune. Confused, Rhea replied, but he continued. His wife had said it first. Fortune had entered their household. Rhea thought bitterly that if she were truly fortunate, she would not have suffered as she had. Yet the Duke went on. The herb she had found would not only bring wealth, but also renown. If cultivation succeeded, remedies bearing the name of House Ellard would be sold across the empire, and for her role, she would be rewarded. Tell me, he said, what would you like? Shocked, Rhea asked if he was serious. He assured her she would naturally receive her portion, and, as he had promised before, anything she wished to learn would be granted. Rhea's answer burst out at once. I do have something I need! The next morning, standing before her mirror, she twirled happily. At last, she was wearing her own maid's uniform. She remembered the moment of her request, how she had told the Duke that the only thing she wanted was a proper maid uniform. The butler had always claimed none were in her size, leaving her to work in expensive dresses. The Duke had looked at her, half bewildered, half amused, at such a small reward for something so grand. But to Rhea, it was no small thing. She loved it. The uniform fit her perfectly, and she had spares, too. No need to worry about dirt or damage. Beaming, she straightened her collar. All right, then, she whispered to herself. Let's get going. The day has finally come. The day we leave for the capital. Outside in the garden, Allan and Jack spoke casually. After only a few sparring matches, the two seemed to have grown unexpectedly close. Allan expressed his surprise, noting that Rhea used to be quiet and well-behaved. Jack admitted he did not know her well either, explaining that they had lived in the same orphanage for years but were never close, not even friends. Allan thought to himself, so why did she specially ask Father to put Jack in the night order? His muttered suspicion followed. Is it the face, after all? At that very moment, Rhea appeared right beside him, repeating his last words. His face. Allan jumped back in shock, blurting out his fear and accusing her of scaring him. Rhea quickly apologized, insisting she hadn't meant to surprise him. Their commotion drew the Duke, who demanded to know if they were ready to leave for the capital. Dana, upset at his tone, shouted angrily that he should not yell at her sister. The Duke brushed past the protest, ordering everyone to depart immediately and board the carriage. Rhea, uncertain, attempted to excuse herself, explaining she would ride with the servants' carriage. The Duke cut her off sharply. You're coming with us, she stammered in protest, caught between obedience and hesitation. The Duchess intervened gently, reminding Rhea that Dana would cry endlessly if she were left behind. Dana confirmed it without hesitation. Yup, I'll cry and cry. With no choice, Rhea accepted and apologized politely for the intrusion, only for the Duchess to reassure her warmly that no apology was needed. And so, the order was given. Then, we shall depart. Inside the carriage, Rhea's thoughts wandered. Once we arrive in the capital, the Duke said he would assign me a vault in my name and an investment manager. After some time, I will probably start receiving the Splesia allowance too. It isn't what I originally planned, but this means I now have a continuing connection with the LR Duchy. Still, since I'm not being bound to their house, it should be okay. Allan, however, broke the silence with an insult. Hey, ugly. A person's face isn't everything. Since you didn't seem to know, I'll kindly inform you myself. Rhea could only think bitterly to herself. What? This trip to the capital is off to an unusual start. The carriage pressed on through the day. When they finally arrived, night had already fallen. The rain poured steadily as the Duke's household reached their residence in the capital, the dark sky swallowing the grand estate in a curtain of storm. Inside the Duke's residence, the Duchess spoke gracefully, her voice warm, as she asked if everyone had been well. The butler responded with respect, assuring her that all was fine. She greeted him fondly, remarking that it had been so while, and asked whether anything had happened in her absence. When the butler inquired about the Duke, she explained that he had gone to the palace first, called away by urgent matters. Rhea's eyes wandered across the hall, and in her thoughts a chill stirred. What is this? I feel an intense hostility from that woman. Is it just my imagination? The headmaid stepped forward, her tone sharp but polite, addressing Dana with a forced smile. She introduced herself as Helen, the headmaid, and commented on how much Dana resembled her father. But before she could finish her words, Dana burst into tears and clung tightly to Rhea. The Duchess, startled, hurried toward them, noting how unusual it was for Dana to cry without reason. She ordered Allan to take Dana upstairs, and Allan complied gently, coaxing her away. The butler offered to guide them to their rooms. Rhea tried to follow, but the Duchess caught her arm. She turned with a soft smile and introduced Rhea to Helen. "This child is Rhea," she said warmly. "She serves Lady Dana." Rhea bowed politely. "Hello, my name is Rhea. I serve Lady Dana." The maids behind Helen whispered among themselves, their gossip flowing like poison. Who is that girl using teleportation to come with the madam? She's dressed like a maid. Did you see the young lady hugging her earlier? Rhea's thoughts grew heavy. Ah, this again. Just like the day I followed Master to the guild, when the members of Terentium suddenly became wary of me. The girl Master had brought along. What followed was nothing but awkward and upsetting. It will be the same this time. I can no longer draw any attention. While staying at the Duke's mansion, I should only show enough cleverness to stay by Dana's side. The Duchess continued, explaining that she had sent a message ahead of time, asking that a room next door to Dana's be prepared since her daughter liked Rhea so much. Helen's answer was cold. "Madam, that is against the rules." "Pardon? How can a maid stay in the main building, let alone in the room next to the young lady? We have prepared a room in the maid's quarters. She should stay there." The Duchess objected, reminding her that Dana would keep looking for Rhea. Helen's answer was cruel. "Then place a chair in the hallway so she can serve even at night." The Duchess's tone sharpened, disbelief in her voice, but Rhea quickly stepped in. "Madam, it's okay. I'm already very thankful just to be given a guest room." Her thoughts whispered quietly to herself. The headmaid's hostility isn't good. I can't let this escalate further. The Duchess looked reluctant, but finally gave in. "Okay, Rhea, let's do as the headmaid says this time. Please, show her to the room." Helen's lips curled into a dark, satisfied smile. "Yes, madam." Days passed. Rhea cleaned the tall windows, her reflection faint in the glass. It's already been a week since we arrived in the capital. Her thoughts lingered on the rhythms of the household. The Duke was busy with his duties as deputy commander, often absent at the palace. The Duchess was consumed with social gatherings, constantly invited by noble ladies. Surprisingly, the head maid had been unwavering in her support of the Duchess, assisting her both materially and emotionally. Of course, she never failed to nag about rules and etiquette. Contrary to Ria's initial concerns, what she should truly have been worried about revealed itself soon enough. Her thoughts halted when three maids approached, eyes sharp with mischief. "Hey, are you Ria?" one asked. "I heard the young lady really dotes on you. You even had meals with her, and even tried to share the same room with her? Gosh, no matter how much she likes you, you should know your place. I heard you're an orphan, so consider it an honor to work in the duchy." The other two chimed in mockingly. "Yeah. Do you think it's easy to get a job here without a letter of recommendation?" Ria's mind hardened. Picking on a mere 9-year-old. Aren't they ashamed? She responded with a calm smile. "Yes, that's right. I'm deeply honored to be able to work in the duchy." The maid's eyes widened. "What?" "So I'll do my best," Ria answered brightly, her cheerfulness catching them off guard. The lead maid sneered. "Well, at least you understand what you're told." Ria kept her thoughts steady. There's no need to respond to provocations from little kids like them. Another jab came. "By the way, are you just playing around after cleaning one window? There's a pile of laundry at the dorm. Start with that." Ria nodded politely. "Yes, understood." She hurried away, light on her feet. Inside, she let out a sigh of relief. That ended quicker than I thought. What a relief. I'm used to this level of bullying. In the quiet maid's quarters, the sudden appearance of a knight startled the women. They whispered among themselves, curious why he had come. Moments earlier, Jack had approached one of them with a question. He wanted to know where Ria was. The maid pressed him for a reason, but when he refused to explain, she finally directed him to the washing area. At that moment, Ria was there, her hands wet and tired as she scrubbed through piles of laundry. She murmured to herself that there was more work than expected, but she was nearly finished. Suddenly, her hand was seized. Startled, she turned and found Jack standing before her. Shock filled her voice as she said his name. Jack demanded to know what she was doing there, his words heavy with frustration. He reminded her that several days had passed since he arrived in the capital, yet she had not come to see him nor sent any word. Even young Master Allan had mentioned he hadn't seen her around. Jack pressed her. Had Allan truly said nothing? Ria, caught off guard, admitted that the young master had simply been too busy, making it hard to run into him. But before more could be said, the nearby maids began whispering to each other, their curious eyes fixed on the pair. To them, the sight of a knight speaking privately with a maid was more than enough fuel for gossip. Ria's thoughts raced in panic. She knew how quickly rumors spread among young maids, and this was exactly the kind of talk they loved most. Trying to break the tension, Ria forced a polite smile, saying it was good to see Jack again, though she insisted she was busy. Jack's gaze darkened as he looked around at the laundry, incredulous that she was doing such work all alone. He reminded her she was supposed to attend to the young lady, not be buried in chores like this. Ria brushed it off, explaining that she only did these tasks when she had time and was not always required at the young lady's side. Just then, a voice called out for her, another maid reminding her that she had tea time scheduled with the young lady and must hurry. Ria hesitated, glancing at the unfinished laundry. Jack offered his help, noting she looked rushed, but she quickly refused, urging him to return to his own duties. Before he could argue further, one of the maids stepped in and offered to finish the work for her. She insisted that they all had to help each other out and urged Rhea to hurry before the young lady grew impatient. Relieved, Rhea accepted, thanking her sincerely before excusing herself. She gave Jack a quick farewell and ran off. Jack reached out, calling after her to wait, but his voice was drowned out by the rustle of the maids. One of them tugged at his sleeve, trying to keep him near. She asked, in a soft, almost teasing tone, if he might lend her a hand with the heavy laundry. Jack's eyes hardened as he looked at her. With sharp words, he pointed out that Rhea was younger and smaller than her, yet had managed this task alone. Surely she could handle it herself as well. The maid froze, stunned at the cold reply. Her protest lingered in the air, but Jack was already walking away, his thoughts elsewhere, chasing after the fleeting shadow of Rhea. As Rhea walked alone through the quiet corridor, her thoughts drifted toward Jack. She noted how quickly he had become popular, even with an age gap between him and the maids. His calm, mature air drew people in, and she mused that it was hardly surprising. Later, she knew, he would be admired not only by the servants, but also by noble ladies and women of high society. And despite the constant attention, he would never be caught in a single scandal until the day he swore his knight's oath to Dana. The thought warmed her heart. It was romantic, she told herself, that someone so admired would only have eyes for one person. But as the words left her lips, a voice cut in. Allan appeared suddenly, catching the single word romantic. Startled, Rhea stammered as Allan pressed her with questions. He insisted that he hadn't come to see her, only Dana, only to share meals with his sister, since she had been so busy lately. He excused himself quickly, leaving Rhea with the strange feeling that he was dodging her earlier remark. She reminded herself to focus on Dana instead, and hurried toward the young lady's chamber. Inside, Dana rushed forward, calling Rhea her sister with pure delight. Rhea knelt and asked if the young girl had been well, and Dana proudly recited everything she had learned. Letters, drawings, greetings. Rhea praised her, relieved to hear she was adjusting well to her lessons. The warmth of their moment was interrupted by the arrival of the Duchess, who entered with a soft smile. She said she had made time to join them, though she still had duties waiting. A moment later, Helen arrived carrying a stack of documents and invitations, reminding the Duchess of all the pressing matters that required attention. The Duchess waved it aside and urged the two girls to enjoy their tea. Rhea's eyes fell on the cups. Black tea. She knew Dana would dislike the taste. Sure enough, the young girl asked for cocoa. Helen, with a sharp tone, rebuked her, saying she could not expect to drink cocoa like a child at the salon the next day. That single word startled the Duchess, who demanded to know what Helen was talking about. Helen calmly explained that she had already arranged for Dana to attend, claiming noble girls needed to start building relationships early. The Duchess objected, saying Dana was still too young. But Helen pressed harder. She argued that Dana, as the daughter of a ducal house, must become the flower of high society, not a laughingstock. Dana tried to interject, saying she could go if her sister accompanied her, but Helen swiftly dismissed the idea. She brought forward another maid, Sophie, whom she introduced as Dana's new attendant for the salon. The Duchess bristled, warning Helen that she was overstepping. Yet Helen persisted, speaking as though she knew the capital society better than anyone else. She dismissed Rhea as far too young, too inexperienced, and unfit for such an important task. The Duchess defended her gently, praising Rhea's intelligence. But Helen cut in again, pointing out that Rhea was not even 10 years old. The weight of her words pressed heavily in the room. Rhea could see the hesitation in the Duchess's face. The Duchess feared that her inexperience might ruin Dana's chances in society, and Helen's authority as head maid left little room for argument. Unable to remain silent, Rhea rose. She bowed politely and excused herself, acknowledging both the Duchess and Helen. Turning to Dana, she encouraged her to listen well to her lessons and prepare. Dana cried out for her not to leave, but Rhea forced a gentle smile and walked away. The next day, Dana stood before the carriage in a lovely dress, looking prettier than usual. But as Rhea watched proudly, the young lady's face crumpled into tears. She refused to go without her sister. The maids scolded her, pleading with her to behave, but Dana clung stubbornly to her demand. Only when Rhea knelt and promised that upon her return, they would read fairy tales and play dolls together did Dana relent. With a sniffle and a brave nod, she climbed into the carriage. Before leaving, she waved, calling back that she would return soon. Rhea smiled and wished her a safe trip. Allan, standing nearby, broke the quiet with a mocking remark, calling Rhea a brat. Rhea thought to herself that if Dana had been there, she surely would have bitten him. Allan then ordered her to bring snacks to the training grounds later, not just send them, but deliver them personally. Grumbling under her breath, she agreed. In the distance, Helen watched, her cold gaze sharp as a knife, her displeasure thick in the air. At the training grounds, Jack noticed Allan staring at him oddly. He asked what it was about. Allan responded bluntly, saying Rhea liked good-looking men. Jack blinked in confusion until Allan pressed further, pointing out that Rhea had called him handsome before. Jack, flustered, admitted that she had indeed said the same to him once. Allan smirked at the revelation, though his words dripped with sarcasm. Just then, Rhea arrived with the promised snacks. Jack immediately offered to help her carry them, scolding her gently for doing it all alone. She laughed it off, hiding the truth of how she had struggled to turn away the other maids who insisted on helping. She presented the food, addressing Allan politely, but found him glaring as if suspecting something. His sharp accusation followed. Were she and Jack close in that way? Rhea recoiled, horrified at his words. She vehemently denied it, swearing there was no chance, no possibility, no way such a thing could ever be true. She turned desperately to Jack for agreement, but Jack, cheeks red and heart pounding, found himself unable to speak at all. Rhea watched Jack closely, noticing the strange look on his face. His expression seemed tight, troubled, as though the playful banter with Allan had left a wound deeper than the one on his cheek. She asked softly if he was upset, reminding him that the young master often spoke carelessly, only to tease. Allan, brushing aside the moment, demanded the basket from Jack, thrust a drink into his hand, and called for another spar. Jack agreed, vowing not to go easy. Allan ordered Rhea to sit aside with the snacks, and though confused by the sudden tension between them, she obeyed. The afternoon wore on until the training ended. Allan left first, tossing thanks over his shoulder, while Jack remained behind to clean the grounds. Rhea approached, finding him still tidying and complaining lightly that Allan always left the tedious work to others. She smiled, agreeing, but her attention shifted when she spotted the scrape on his face. Reaching out instinctively to check, her hand was slapped gently away. She froze, startled by the rejection. Then Jack spoke, asking her suddenly if she liked Allan. Her eyes widened in shock. She stammered at his meaning, but he clarified without hesitation. Was she interested in the young master, romantically? Rhea cut him off quickly, almost laughing at the absurdity. To her, Allan was nothing more than a younger brother. Jack blinked at her words in disbelief, pointing out that Allan was older. Rhea waved it off, saying age didn't matter. Allan behaved like a child, and she'd even heard from the Duchess that he still clutched a doll when he slept. Jack muttered that it was unnecessary information, then steadied himself, his voice quieter this time. What about him? Did she see him the same way? Rhea tilted her head. You? What about you? She asked. His voice firmed as he pressed the question. Did she see him as a little brother too? She shook her head. No. You're a friend. Relief softened his face, and he allowed a small smile, saying that was enough. Rhea, watching him, realized what he was worried about. He feared she might be hurt one day, that her closeness with Allan would crash against the walls of social status. Such thoughts were heavy for someone his age. He was thoughtful, more thoughtful than anyone gave him credit for. She wanted to ease his mind, but before she could speak again, a maid arrived, breathless, saying the young lady had returned from the salon. Rhea lit up immediately and rushed off, calling over her shoulder for Jack to see the infirmary. Jack tried to stop her, but she was already gone. In the Duchess's chambers, Dana slept soundly, exhausted from her day. Rhea stood beside her, whispering that she looked like a baby angel. Allan, standing at her shoulder, agreed hastily, though he flustered when Rhea raised an eyebrow, insisting he was only admiring his sister. The Duchess then turned to Rhea, saying she had something to give her. It was a letter. Rhea blinked as she read the name. Countess Marietta. Her heart stirred. She had not expected anything, not after so long. The Duchess apologized for opening it first, explaining that the sender had addressed it to her instead, assuming Rhea could not read. But the words inside flowed clearly as Rhea unfolded the parchment. Bianca's handwriting greeted her warmly. She said she was glad to hear Rhea was safe at the Ellard Duchy, glad that her scars had healed. She wished she could see Rhea herself, just to confirm it. Then, in her own way, the Countess filled the letter with praises of her homeland. She described Duke Belus, said to be the greatest archmage on the continent. She praised the air, so handsome it made the eyes open anew. She painted the sea beneath the castle walls with such beauty that Rhea could almost see it herself. Though it was little more than patriotism and loyalty, the letter moved Rhea deeply. The delicate strokes of the handwriting, the thought of someone remembering her enough to send it, it was overwhelming. She decided at once that when she returned, she would preserve the letter with magic and keep it as a family treasure. Allan broke her reverie, tilting his head and asking when she had even learned to read. He remarked that the orphanage had not taught such things, and that even Jack had been surprised by her ability. Rhea explained sheepishly that an older girl used to visit the orphanage often. While the boys played outside, that sister had sat with her patiently, teaching her words and letters. Allan seemed unconvinced, but before he could push further, the Duchess spoke. She looked at Rhea with quiet seriousness, then asked a question that caught her entirely off guard. Would Rhea like to go to the Duchy of Belus? The afternoon air felt heavy with unspoken thoughts after Rhea had finished reading the letter. She admitted aloud that it had stirred her curiosity. The Duchess responded carefully, describing the Duchy of Belus as a wonderful place, but her tone hinted at hesitation. Sensing this, Rhea asked directly if the Duchess had ever been there. The Duchess admitted she had, though her words trailed with a hint of reluctance. Allan, eager to join the conversation, proudly declared that he, too, had been to Belus and remembered how amazing it was, but the Duchess quickly dismissed his claim, reminding him he had only gone once at the age of 2. She accused him of bluffing, and he pouted in frustration, muttering under his breath that he hated her. With a soft sigh, the Duchess turned back to Rhea, telling her it was late and she should return to her room. As Rhea left, the Duchess murmured to herself, wondering how that child would eventually answer. Days later, after receiving Bianca's letter, Rhea found herself assisting Viscount Bardot. He was grateful, thanking her sincerely for helping resolve urgent matters, and handed her what she had requested. Though he suggested she could have asked for something greater, she assured him that this was all she needed. Grateful, she left with polite words, though her mind remained restless. She remembered the moment she had asked the Viscount about the Splesia plant. The progress had been painfully slow. Even the one root she had once discovered had failed to grow further. The Viscount confessed it was a miracle she had found even that much, for without a fully developed root, their research could not advance. Rhea had felt the weight of disappointment. If even the Duke's doctors and mages struggled, perhaps they still had no true idea of how to unlock the herb's potential. Her thoughts were interrupted when Dana appeared suddenly, throwing herself into Rhea's arms. The little girl had missed her dearly and handed her a gift, a drawing. Rhea looked at it in surprise, recognizing the fairy tale princess the young lady adored. Dana insisted she had drawn it for Rhea because to her, Rhea was a princess. Rhea's heart swelled with gratitude and disbelief, touched by the pure sincerity. A maid approached, smiling at the bond between the two. She mentioned how Dana had spoken of Rhea at the salon, boasting of her beauty before noble ladies who had all grown curious about her. Rhea was startled, realizing she hadn't known Dana had done this. Though proud, she felt a flush of embarrassment. The maid continued, saying the young lady often claimed Rhea was the prettiest in the world, but her tone carried a shade of condescension, and Rhea felt the sting of humiliation hidden beneath the compliment. Dana noticed her sister's expression and worriedly asked what was wrong. The maid quickly covered her slip with flattery, praising Dana's wisdom and grace, claiming she valued inner beauty over outward appearances. Allan, however, broke the fragile moment with sharp words. He accused the maid of mocking Rhea by calling her pretty, insisting she had meant the opposite. Dana flared in anger, shouting back that Rhea truly was the most beautiful girl in the world. The maid panicked, denying the accusation, but Allan would not relent. He ordered the butler forward, commanding that the maid be dismissed immediately. The woman fell to her knees, begging forgiveness, but Allan's voice was cold. There would be no mercy. He ordered her to leave the mansion at once, warning that if she was seen again, others would also bear punishment. Without another glance, Allan told Dana and Rhea to follow him. Rhea, stunned, realized that in that moment she had stepped under the young master's protection. But she did not yet understand how that choice would alter the eyes of the servants who watched her from the shadows. The knight's quarters buzzed faintly with the sounds of steel clashing in practice. But outside, Jack stood waiting alone until Rhea's voice called him over. Surprised, he admitted he thought it was a joke at first. After all, she had never once sought him out like this. Rhea, holding out a small package, revealed her reason. It was a gift, a special ointment crafted by Baroness Bardot herself, capable of healing scrapes overnight and mending deeper wounds in just days. She added that next time, the Baroness planned to make something even stronger, for energy and growth. Jack looked at her, his voice soft yet edged with pride, asking if he still seemed that weak to her. Rhea was caught off guard, insisting she knew better than anyone how skilled he was. But Jack only thanked her and promised to use the ointment well. She reminded him not to overdo his training, but when she tried to leave, he offered to walk her back. She declined, but his concern lingered. He asked if she was really doing well, if the maids were treating her properly, if she was being bullied again like before. Rhea waved it off, saying she was fine, and reminded him boldly of the time she had saved him from arrogant brats. Though skeptical, Jack finally let her go, while Rhea reflected on his worry. Her thoughts grew heavier as she made her way through the manor. Though Sophie was gone, the eyes of the servants still followed her everywhere, prying and watching. She reassured herself that if she was careful, things would remain under control. But her steps suddenly halted when her foot struck a bucket of water carelessly placed in the middle of the hall. She nearly slipped, catching herself against the wall. Her eyes narrowed when she noticed a maid hiding in the corner, confirming what she already suspected. This had been intentional. She scolded herself for even thinking to report it to the Duchess. That was not her place. A few moments of kindness did not change her standing in this household. This was her problem to endure. She muttered under her breath that familiarity could be dangerous, and hardened herself. She was used to bullying. She had faced far worse before. But instead of fading, the harassment only escalated. Foreign substances appeared in the laundry. Whispering followed her in every corridor. And one day, a bucket of mop water, not clean but foul and stinking, was poured over her clothes. The stench clung unbearably, and panic rose in her chest. Dana's lessons would be ending soon. She could not appear before the child in such a state. She washed as best as she could, but her uniforms were all being laundered. The only garment left to wear was the dress she had once used at the Duke's mansion. Wearing it now would certainly stir gossip, but what other choice did she have? She steadied her breath, telling herself she had nothing to be ashamed of. With her apron tied neatly over it, she would walk with confidence. She would not slink in shame. She moved cautiously through the hallways, trying not to draw attention, but voices suddenly rose behind her. Two men stood at the end of the corridor, their gazes fixed on her. One of them, with striking red hair, spoke first, asking his companion if this girl was his younger sibling. The other man, Lucio, denied it immediately. At that name, Rhea froze. Her heart skipped, her thoughts racing. Had she heard correctly? That name, it couldn't be. Slowly, almost against her will, she turned to face them. Lucio's name echoed in Rhea's mind, a memory stirring sharply within her chest. The boy standing there, with silver hair so much like her own, confirmed that his younger sister shared the same trait. The red-haired youth beside him remarked that upon closer inspection, Rhea bore no resemblance to Lucio at all. The sudden meeting pulled Rhea back into fragments of her past life. She recalled whispers among the other children at the orphanage, how the son of the terrifying Duke Elard was said to be at their academy, how rumors connected him to the crybaby girl some insisted was a princess, and how fortunate Jack must be to have aligned himself with her. Rhea remembered crouching alone afterward, tracing letters clumsily into the dirt with a stick, repeating the name she had overheard, Lucio Elard. The letters were jagged and uncertain, her unpracticed hand betraying how little schooling she had ever received. But she had written it anyway, saying the name softly to herself. It was then that a voice startled her, Lucio himself, asking why she kept calling for him. That memory seared into her, dragging her back into the present moment before him now. The red-haired noble peered at her curiously, wondering aloud if she was perhaps hard of hearing, as she had failed to respond at once. Rhea stumbled through an apology, admitting she had been startled. The man pressed further, questioning her identity. He claimed he had never heard of another young lady in the Duke of Elard's family besides the youngest princess. Rhea denied the assumption, identifying herself as nothing more than a maid in service to the Duke's household. His eyes flicked over her clothing, puzzled, but before he could ask further, Lucio's sharp voice cut him off. He declared that no one had the right to interrogate a member of his household so harshly. The red-haired boy scoffed, insisting he had only been curious, but Lucio silenced him with firm composure. It was then that Allan and Dana came running. Allan's voice called out to his elder brother, scolding him for being so late, while Dana ran straight into Ria's arms, hugging her tightly and exclaiming her joy. Allan, noticing her attire, teased that it had been a while since she wore something different, joking about whether she was about to play dolls with Dana. The red-haired noble observed this and concluded that Ria must be Dana's playmate maid, a favorite in the household. Ria, relieved, thought to herself how fortunate it was that the matter had been glossed over so easily. When Allan asked about Lucio's tardiness, Lucio explained he had been delayed by the exam period but would remain home for a time. Allan brightened at the thought, asking eagerly if Askell had come as well, but before he could press further, the red-haired noble interrupted again. He teased that bragging too much about his little sister to the crown prince might sour favor. Confusion clouded Allan's face, and Lucio interjected smoothly, addressing the boy by title. At last, he made formal introductions. This was His Highness Nicholas Laxuten, first Prince of the Empire. The name sent a chill through Ria. Nicholas Laxuten, the sole prince, Lucio's age, yet 12 years Dana's elder. In her memory, however, he was no dignified heir but a vicious thief, one who had sought Dana in the past. Nicholas smiled at Dana with a gleam in his eyes, remarking on her cuteness, but Lucio quickly tried to dismiss him. Nicholas bristled, offended that they would turn him away without even a cup of tea. Ria's heart screamed silently. Dana must not linger near him. But Dana, oblivious, tugged on her sister's hand and whispered a question. Wasn't her brother handsome? The innocent question left Ria stunned, but she answered softly that yes, Lucio was indeed handsome. Then, Dana turned the question on Lucio, asking if he thought Ria was pretty too. Lucio's answer was blunt. He said she was not. Ria's heart sank, though not with surprise. She knew it well enough already. Nicholas burst into laughter, teasing Lucio for his honesty, saying it was cruel to be so harsh to a young girl. Allan, worried, asked if she was all right, but Ria forced a smile, replying that she was sit to it. After all, there was even a young master who called her ugly daily. Allan tried to explain himself, but Ria turned to Dana, gently redirecting her to play dolls before dinner. Dana's eyes lit with joy as she agreed. As they left, Nicholas lingered, commenting slyly on Ria's boldness and questioning Lucio's motives. If he disliked lying, he could have simply stayed silent, as was his habit. Lucio faltered, unable to answer. Later, in Dana's room, the young girl asked whether Ria was angry because of her brother's harsh words. Ria reassured her it was not the case, then leaned close, suggesting they keep a secret. Dana's eyes widened with wonder at the thought of such a pact. Ria told her the secret was that she was indeed pretty, but that no one else knew it, only Dana. She admitted to herself that she lied, but believed it was kinder this way. Dana lit up, declaring she would protect the secret. She insisted on a pinky promise, vowing she would guard it faithfully because she was the hero, and Ria was her princess. A soft knock came at the door before a maid entered Dana's room, announcing that the evening meal was ready. Ria gently looked to the young girl and suggested that they go together to dine. With a cheerful nod, Dana agreed, her small hand slipping into Ria's as they prepared to leave the room.
Hi, this is Winter. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Winter Manhwa for more exciting recaps every week. Your support means the world. See you in the next one.